Welcome back to Bonding Time. My name is Hutchinson, David Hutchinson, and I'm here with my fellow Bond fanatics.
Greenwich. Christopher Greenwich.
Patrick. Ramon Patrick.
And I'm just John.
Three signings this time. We're on point, guys. Cheers.
All right, so this week we're talking about You Only Live Twice. This was Sean Connery's last James Bond before retiring from the role. Came out in 1967 and directed by Lewis Gilbert, the first-time director of a Bond movie. And funnily enough, it's written by Roald Dahl, who is first-time writer for the Bond movies and is more well known for his children's books. So kind of an interesting choice to be writing a Bond movie. So starting things off, opening title sequence and song. Ramon, what were your thoughts?
I actually really did like this opening sequence. The song was definitely on point. I think it is second in my list after Goldfinger. An opening sequence. This is when they've started to solidify the Bond that we know now. Like this intro, I saw it, I was like, ooh, this is along the lines of a classic stuff. Fits in with the general story and it was on point. And I will say this though, I didn't realize like Bond was so risque back in the day, but hey, trying something new.
Okay. John, what about you?
Yeah, I'll agree. It was solid. When I watched this movie, I didn't have expectations after the last couple of ones. So my biggest thing was to watch it early, and so I wouldn't be tired and wouldn't feel like if it's a chore, and it would just be fun. And I think the opening sequence set the tone with the whole space sequence. It's like, what? Them, one, the space sequence, two, them killing off Bond, and then three, the opening titles themselves were so very racist and inappropriate. I was just like, cool. This is the movie that I just signed up for, so I'm gonna just like reserve judgment for the next 2 hours and accept that this is the movie that they put forth and enjoy it for what it is. And once I did that, I mean, it wasn't that bad. I mean, it was very bad, but that was the whole movie. Once you like give that up, then you're like, all right, well, just enjoy the ride.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chris, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, the opening scene with where Bond like fakes his death, I didn't really think that was necessary for him to do. So that seemed kind of pointless to me. I liked how it started off with the spaceship, getting like just consumed by something else. It's like, ooh, what's going on here? I thought that was a pretty interesting scene. The opening titles, I thought the opening titles were pretty good. You continue to see the evolution of these titles. With From Russia with Love, they started using like real imagery along with the shapes of like women. And they kind of continue that here, using like real imagery, like volcanoes and everything, along with, the outlines of women. And, you really start to see these titles develop as you go along. So I liked the opening titles, and I thought that I didn't really like the song though. It wasn't very memorable to me. I like the fact that they still use the title of the movie in the song, but this song wasn't really. I didn't like the harmony of it. It wasn't very memorable.
Okay. So for me, I love this song. This is one of my most favorite Bond songs of all time. Nancy Sinatra, Frank Sinatra's daughter, sings this one. And this for me, there's a few songs from the Bond movies that excel, like go past just being a Bond song, and this is one of them. This is for me. This is just a timeless classic song, whether it's with Bond or not. Um, with the opening title sequence, I just thought it was ridiculous, but I loved it. With the spaceship, I just think. Well, first of all, the guy is doing a EVA out of his spaceship and can't see a big spaceship coming. Is there something blocking his view?
Or
I mean, he's in space. I don't understand how it caught him by surprise. It's not as if it came around from a corner. But I thought that was hilarious. What's even more interesting, this movie came out in 1967, so I mean, they hadn't even landed on the moon yet. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of crazy putting it in like, because I actually checked that. I was like, wait a minute, like, would they be doing this kind of space stuff? Obviously, I mean, not. I mean, it's almost science fiction in this movie. But yeah, I loved the opening scene. Bond dying. It seems to be a trope that a lot of Bond movies do. Even so far, if you think about it, From Russia with Love had the fake out where you saw Red kill Bond and then it wasn't Bond. And then, well, Goldfinger, you didn't have it, but Thunderball, you see the coffin with JB and you're like, oh, is Bond dead? No, obviously he's not dead. And then in this one, you actually see him get killed. It's like, oh, he's dead now. Even though we know he's not actually dead.
It's at the beginning of the movie, right? It's just.
And then I was thinking Skyfall even did that. So it's like something I want to look for, because I noticed like a lot of these movies tend to repeat plot lines. So, and themes, like even the Bond girls like we were discussing last week. But overall, I liked the opening title sequence. I thought it was really good. It set the mood for the kind of movie we were getting into. Yeah. So moving on to Bond girls, which in my opinion is actually the weakest part of this movie. I don't think the Bond girls in this movie were good at all. Probably the weakest so far. But I'm curious to see what you think. John.
Yeah, I can see why you would think that, because one, they're pretty interchangeable. It was hard for me to actually decide who was the Bond girl in this movie. I don't know if you guys had that same issue.
Yeah.
I landed on Kissy, his wife. I figured if anybody was the Bond girl, she would be it. Although she came in and like, I don't know if it was the last half an hour, but she came in really late in the game. But in the end, she is the only one that survived, and she was the one who helped him. When I broke it down, so there were other women in the movie. There was the girl who was helping him, but she seemed more like a subordinate helping him. There was the secretary enemy who saved the enemy and eventually died. So Kissy was the only one who like made it out. But when I broke it down, I saw it as looking at all of the things. They kind of set her up to be an ugly character. Like they made fun of her for she's supposed to have a face like a pig. I think they said it was. And I was like, wow. Kind of messed up.
Yeah, that was pretty fucked up.
Yeah, and what were you gonna say, Rowan?
No, but like it was clear like he was joking with him. So like he set Bond up to be like, yeah, she's gonna look terrible. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
And then she came up and he was like, yeah, it was her. I was just kidding.
Yeah, so that's the messed up part about it, right? Because that's the whole point. It was a joke that the guy was playing on Bond, but Bond kind of took it like, yeah, Bond was making the joke back, but you can see that he wasn't exactly thrilled at the fact that he was probably going to get an ugly, unattractive lady. But the reality of the situation is, how does this affect anything at all? Like, this is a fake marriage. This is a fake everything. Like, why does that matter in any way? But he kept coming back to it. And I was like, I mean, all of us know that there's no way that his wife is going to end up to be unattractive. So, whatever.
I thought it was funny. I thought it was funny.
I
Yeah.
so his joke on Bond was funny because it's kind of like, oh crap. But again, like this had no bearing. This is not a real arranged marriage. Like you're not spending the rest of your life with this woman. It's like the fact that she made it through the movie is actually pretty impressive. Like there's no them coming back to that joke was just like when you read too much into it, it comes back to like her only value is if she's attractive or not. And the idea that she might be unattractive seemed like the way that he came back to it, it was almost defensive. Like, well, you stuck me with an ugly wife, so I guess I'm gonna have to deal as like, why is this an issue? But so what I was saying though is that like in the end of it, she was helpful. She was fairly competent. She did as all of them are expected to do, which is like, no, I'm not sleeping with you. You sleep over there. I'm sleeping over here. Nonsense. Well, not nonsense, but just at this point,
The idea of a small cat and mouse in 30 seconds.
yeah, it's like it's such a. We all know as Bond movie watchers, like this is not going to play out like that. Like it's not going to stay like that. But she did that in the beginning. It was helpful, and that's what I always come back to is that Honey Rider was helpful. A lot of these Bond women, it's like it comes down to how competent are you. And although the entire movie she's in a swimsuit, she was fairly competent. She wasn't worthless. Bond didn't have to save her really. Like, and when I broke it down like that, I actually really liked her. When I really thought about it, I liked her in the end. So I actually ranked her just under Honey Rider because Domino was a bit of a mess of a character for me. So although she didn't have a lot of screen time compared to the rest of them, I think that she's pretty. She held her own. She resisted Bond, and I felt like to the end it was kind of like, well, you're married, and you just like took down a big major crime boss, and you saved the world. So why not have sex in the life raft? Everybody have a good time.
Cool.
What did you think, Chris?
Yeah, so my take is a little bit different. I thought the Bond went yeah, I definitely thought Kissy was definitely the main Bond girl here. Aki, the woman who died earlier in the movie, she was in early running for it, but I think she was real helpful. But she ended up dying, and Kizzy was the one in the end who survived and helped Bond locate the base. So I definitely would have to give it to her as the main Bond girl. Personally, I liked Helga, the assassin from Spectre. For me, I thought she had the most personality. She was the most interesting. I actually thought Aki and Kizzy were just not very. I thought their personalities were really flat, and they were just following Bond. They weren't really well developed. I mean, Aki fell in love with Bond, like I feel like almost immediately. Kizzy, I feel like she had no personality at all, to be honest. What did she do other than just listen to what Bond said? So I don't know. I rate these Bond girls. I honestly I felt like there was really no Bond girl in this movie. But if I had to pick one, I guess it would be Kizzy. And I say no Bond girl just because, Kizzy came in real late. Aki died early, and then you have Helga, who was only in there for a short bit of time, and she's she's with Spectre, so she's not really on Bond's side. So I wasn't really a fan of the Bond girls in this movie, and yeah, I'd have to rate them pretty low.
Yeah. Ramon.
Well, I'm gonna say Aki's definitely the Bond girl for me. Kizzy was just there. I love how in the end, like she came in, and in order to make her seem like you're like, why is she there with like the trained assassins?
Yeah.
Then they, repel in, and she picks up a gun and then shoots a guy, and like, okay, I see it. and proceeds to hide behind him for the rest of the thing. Like,
Uh,
no, she was just there. Aki was it to me. She seemed competent on her own. Clearly not a combat specialist, but I found it funny, like, you know, when Bond got to the shipyard and he was being attacked, and she was like, you know what? I'll stay. I should stay. Bond's like, no, you should probably go. Kizzy was gone. Like, one scene he shoots the guy, the other scene she is running down the docks. I thought Kizzy was competent. She seemed
Was that Kissy?
no, he means
not Kizzy, sorry, Aki.
That was Aki,
Aki
right?
was
Yeah.
Aki was competent. She seemed organic. Like, she had her own situation in her life before the whole Bond thing. Like, it's before Bond, she wasn't revolving around him. She did fall for him pretty easily, but once again, it's a Bond trope.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
like, yeah. I mean, she, like, Aki, like, come on. Like, she just walks in to Bond getting a massage and is like, let me take over. Like, what?
Yeah, but so that's one of my issues. I feel like there was a scene that was cut or something.
Yeah.
Because
she was the
Sean-
one that met Bond in the beginning and was giving him the massage and faked his death with him.
No, it wasn't her. That was a Chinese girl. That wasn't
I
her.
checked back because I had to look at that
Yeah.
too.
No, because I know the reason why you check back is because
He says
you think
like,
that because Bond, the way Sean Connery plays that scene is really weird because he's
Yeah.
like, Aki, and is like, oh, you're meeting a long lost friend. But the reality is they've only had a few moments together on screen where she was driving the car and he didn't recognize her before. So it's like, what happened there? That's such a weird scene. The fact that Chris actually went back to check if it was the girl from the beginning to try and make sense of it, right?
Yeah.
So that is such a weird scene, in my opinion. Like that's one of the things I know I mentioned before, how Sean Connery had checked out for this movie, and it's kind of because of all the attention he was getting as James Bond, especially on this one. And I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but that was just a really weird Sean Connery way to say something. Like, he's so dry most of the time, but he shows so much emotion in that one word, Aki, and it's just what it really makes you think like you missed something. But yeah, I thought these were the weakest Bond girls for sure, in my opinion. Interesting story. So they were shooting in Japan, and they were working in association with like Tokyo Film Studios. So they were requested to have two local girls in the movie, and they took them to England and were training them in English and whatnot. And the girl who plays Kissy was actually supposed to play Aki, and so their roles were actually flipped. But the woman who plays Kissy was not doing very good at all. So the producers were actually going to fire her and break the news to her. But essentially, she threatened to kill herself. So the producers were like, okay, you're not that bad. And they basically just shifted the roles. So Kissy, the woman who plays Kissy got Kissy's role, and the woman who plays Aki got the more prominent role where it's more talking and everything, because she was better at that. And that's why Kissy is actually completely dubbed. So that's not her voice at all. And it's probably why in a lot of the scenes she's very quiet and kind of just there. I think Chris and Ramon both mentioned that Kissy was kind of just there for most of the time along for the ride. So yeah, I kind of feel like that's what Aki for me was the main one that I liked. She died pretty early though. And you mentioned was it Helga? Is that her name?
Helga, yep.
I liked her, but she's so dumb. Why she has Bond in a chair, why put him in an airplane and then jump out the airplane?
I know.
How stupid is that? And did Bond not see she was wearing a parachute?
No, for the record, she was still getting more information out of him. Like, that tactic was actually
Yeah, but then just shoot him.
Yeah.
That's why Austin Powers makes fun of Dr. Evil, man. It's just so stupid. Why doesn't Spectre just kill Bond?
My Helga moment was like, wait, Bond's alive? But he was dead in the papers, and you're like,
That's the other thing.
his face was on in the papers.
Thank you.
Like,
Oh,
how did you miss it?
literally, they show a scene with Bond's face in the paper saying that Bond has died, and it's like she even references it was in the papers, but didn't recognize him. That was great. But the thing with Helga is I find she's a Fiona clone because Fiona was so good in Thunderball.
Yeah.
So I feel like they were just trying to capitalize on that and recreate Fiona.
Agreed.
So I definitely prefer Fiona over her. So that's why, in my opinion, some of the weakest girls in the series so far. But since we're talking about Helga, and she's kind of the femme fatale villain, so moving on to villains. Now Spectre, we've seen Spectre in all the Bond movies so far, except Goldfinger. And this is the first time that you see the mastermind behind Spectre in Blofeld. So, what did you guys think of Blofeld's reveal, how he was played, and his presence on screen?
Yeah. So I liked how they led up to the reveal of the villain here. Since they'd used Spectre and most of the other movies, you could probably pretty much guess that Spectre was going to be the villain here. But I kind of like how they still tried to keep it hidden about who was kidnapping these spaceships, and who was really messing things up here, until maybe halfway through the movie. So I kind of like that, because at one point you'd be like, oh, is it Spectre? I don't know, maybe. But then when they finally reveal Blofeld, I loved his appearance, the scar on his eye, very, he was very menacing to me, I thought. I thought his acting was great. I love the cat. I love that trope, man. That is cool. As corny as cheesy as that is, I love that. That's memorable. I remember the cat, the scar on his eye. I love it. Very menacing. But my problem was that I felt, Blofeld was the main villain here, but they didn't use him enough.
Yep.
And I think that was the problem. I feel like it was okay before to keep him hidden in the prior movies and just give him a few scenes, because he wasn't really the main villain per se. But here, I feel like that didn't work very well. I feel like you need to give him more to do. For the most of the movie, he's just sitting in the chair, just stroking the shit out the cat, man.
He could have been behind the scenes of this one, and it would have been the same.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, as a villain here in this one, I don't really think he was a very memorable villain here. His appearance, yes, but I don't think they used him well enough here. And I think I definitely appreciated some of the villains that they used in prior movies, like From Russia with Love and Goldfinger. Way more memorable.
I'm going to second what Chris is saying. Even I could even say there was a specific henchman that we could say, was in charge, because Helga was one. I guess the guy who was
Osaki or Osako?
Right, Osako. I guess he showed up and seemed menacing, when the guy's not balling out on the dockyards. Villains, to me, this was negligible. Blofeld could have been saved. I thought he would have been saved for the next one. Even as Chris was saying, the cat kind of overshadowed him. When they were using a real cat, and then you can see they switch the fake one. It's like, oh, ooh.
Did they switch to a fake one? I didn't notice that.
Did they?
When?
There was moments when, I think, when they actually got into the bunker, and he closed the shutters, but you could hear the gunshots, and the cat looked like it was freaking out. That was not a real cat. That could not have been a real cat.
Ramon. So I got a story for that. So that was the real cat. And the thing is, I don't know how the actor playing Blofeld managed to hold on to the cat, because that cat was freaking out, dude. Like,
Yeah.
apparently, the owner of the cat wanted to sue because the cat would not act. It would not go on a set. It refused because obviously they triggered the explosions and the cat wasn't ready for it. So the cat just started to freak out. And yet the guy playing Blofeld just carried on, like, did his
holding the
scene.
cat.
And you can see his hand on it, and it's just like,
grabbing it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't even notice that at first. I didn't even until like you showed me that, Dave, and I was like, oh my god, how did he stay so normal? Like that's some top quality grade A acting there, sir.
yeah, props to him.
Not on the cat side, because that was all real, clearly. Wow.
I'll say though, you know, the disclaimer they'll put no animals were hurt in the making of this film. They definitely wouldn't have been able to put that because that poor cat, man.
Oh my god,
seriously.
For real, dude. That's a shame.
What did you think, John?
Yeah, I'll have to third everything that was said already. You had a 5-film lead up to this amazing villain who was the orchestrator of everything, and what a letdown. I mean, yeah, you look a little bit weird and you have a strange cat. We kind of knew that you probably looked a little bit weird because you're hiding your face the whole time. And I saw the cat from forever before. And
Could have been that, you know, like that trope, but
yeah, and I think the biggest contribution that he made throughout the movie was giving the movie its title, which in hindsight, I was like, you based the title of the movie off of the opening fake sequence. Like, that was it. The bad guy. So Ramon said this already, but if Blofeld contributed nothing whatsoever. His name, he gave out his name, but he didn't, like, if he wasn't there, the movie would have still run the same exact way. If he didn't reveal himself, the movie would run the same exact way. And where I lost respect for him was a very Austin Powers moment where he shot Osato, and then he was like, "Follow me, Bond," and then he was gonna.
right.
But it's like, there's no way that Bond is gonna, like, you only live twice, and you're giving him his second life. Like, why, dog?
Third life, technically. But yeah, I get what you mean.
That was pretty disappointing. As far as it is just annoying because as the most important bad guy, the bad guy who has been around for all the movies, he is such a letdown. He's at the bottom for sure. Blofeld, like,
Oh, yeah. Heck, even give me a amazing fight with like Hans, your personal bodyguard or something. The Hans fight was like,
Yeah, that guy was like a hood ornament, by the way. Like I didn't even really think about that guy until Bond was fighting him. I was like, oh
Yeah,
okay.
same thing. It's like, where did he come from?
And, right.
like, he's very large, but all them fighting in that room, and there's like, yeah, he's gonna fall in with the piranhas. Like, who? That was. There's no way.
a mile away.
So yeah.
Thing is, I felt like you could see in this movie them reusing old characters. Like that blonde guy was like Grant from Russia with Love.
Yep.
They even had the Kleb older woman. They had another Fiona. So they're just like building characters off older characters, but not as strong.
Yeah.
And I know that's gonna repeat itself throughout as we go through. So
It's like were they running out of ideas at this point? Like,
Yes.
I don't know. The thing is, they still had so many books to do, so it's kind of interesting that they were. So moving on to the best one-liners. Ramon, I know you love puns. What did you think of this movie, and what was your favorite?
Like, there weren't many, but I think this one was just a drop in the ocean.
Oh.
That was mine too. I loved that one. That was so good. Although I liked the one where he's talking about little Nelly and how she defended her honor.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think that
I
was
thought
really
Lil Nelly and Taylor says that was it. Send her father as well. I thought it was actually pretty funny too.
Yeah.
Close second.
What's your pick, John?
So I had to go a little bit weird with it, the way same as last time. My best one-liner actually came from the opening sequence when the Soviet representative said, "The world knows we are a peace-loving people." They have
You know what's
Shoot,
funny is how he delivers that line too. Is like you can't even take the guy seriously. Like the way he says it.
he was just man. I had to like pause it. I was like, wait a minute. They're talking about the Soviets, right? And then I like rewind. I was like, wait a minute. Great pause. Like if I was in the movie theater and I saw that shit, I would just be like, hold up. I don't believe this. They were not doing the jokes the way the whole movie was ridiculous. They weren't doing a lot of ridiculous dialogue. So I was looking for a one-liner, and that's the only line that stuck with me the entire movie. I was like, that's the one-liner. That's it.
For me, I think mine was when he was talking with Moneypenny. She was telling him the password is "I love you," and she was like, "Repeat it," and he's like, "No, I think I can remember that," and he refused to say it. That one kind of got me.
That was pretty funny when he had to actually say it at the sumo wrestling match too, and it was just a little awkward. Like she was like glancing over at him, and he's just like, oh, do I have to say this kind of thing? And then when he meets Tanaka, and he's like,
how do you feel about me?
How do you feel about me? And he's like, I love you. Like, I thought that delivery was so good, and Bond's just like, oh, well, glad we got that out of the way.
Yeah,
I loved that. But yeah, I'd go with your pick, Ramon, just to drop in the ocean. That was definitely the biggest
one that Sean Connery acted the most campy for sure.
Yeah. All right. So overall thoughts and rating. Chris, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think I'd give this one a 7. This is definitely gonna be the lowest one for me so far. The villain was a little bit underwhelming, menacing. Loved his look, but they needed to do a little bit more with him. And the Bond girls were really non-existent. And then also something I didn't mention, I kind of felt like Sean Connery, felt like James Bond was kind of along for the ride in this movie a little bit. I felt it was just really him, just people doing stuff for him and like just helping him out. A lot of the time, getting him set up with the Japanese wedding, the wife, getting him onto the island as a fisherman or whatever. When he lands in Japan, Tanaka kind of getting him set up there. I just felt like he kind of took a backseat at certain points there as well. But overall, I'd have to give this one a 7. Definitely the lowest so far. I love the plot, and I like the plot, but there were definitely some lows in this movie for me.
What about you, John?
I'll give this an 8. Actually, hear me out. Right, I can see why you have a problem with all of those things, but once the first scene happened and I knew that I was along for a absolutely ridiculous movie where nothing was going to make sense, you strap into that ride, then you've given up. I think that's exactly, so for me it was a good thing. I gave up all hope of this being a good movie. I feel like if Sean Connery was like, just get through it, I'm pretty sure that that's what Dave was talking about, where at this point it's like, we're ridiculous, it's stupid, this is dumb, and he was just like, this is the paycheck, this is my last movie, I'm done with this crap after. But there was, guys, they made him Japanese, come on, like.
I hated that was the most cringe-worthy part of this movie.
It's so racist and stupid. But see, the thing is, right? If you're looking at this movie like serious spy movie, absolutely, absolutely abhorrible, and then it has to get like a 4. But if you look at this movie as something closer to Austin Powers, it's a really fun movie to watch. If you look at it more as a comedy, it's a really fun movie to watch, and then you can give it a higher rating. And that's what I did, because I like the minute that I saw that face scene, I was like, this is a crap movie. And when you look at, so if you're judging this movie as an A-class movie, it's gonna fail. Like there's no, like it's horrible. If you're judging this as a B-class movie, it's friggin' fantastic. It is amazing. It is such an awesome movie, right? There were, to put this in perspective, there was a helicopter fight.
Oh yeah.
There were ninjas.
There were ninjas. Yep.
There was a rocket cigarette. There was a secret lair. Again, he became Japanese. The man literally, it's not even to say that his hair was gross, but like it's basically the same color as it started with. It's not like he was blonde and then he went brunette. Yeah. It's basically the same hair. It was just really bad hair. He did hunched over and he's like Japanese all of a sudden. Seriously.
The thing is with the Japanese stuff is that it did absolutely nothing, because literally as soon as he became Japanese, they tried to kill him. The whole point of turning Japanese was that they wouldn't try and kill him. They wouldn't recognize him. But the same night he got that's when Aki got killed. And then he had 2 other assassination attempts when he was at ninja school. So his disguise is clearly worth shit. And then he still tries to use it when he goes and gets married. So at that point, it's like, the disguise is pointless. Why are y'all carrying forward with it? It doesn't make any sense.
Did you seriously need the movie to tell you that the disguise was worthless? Like, that it made absolutely no sense? I feel like if you should be able to judge that for yourself, that this is completely pointless. And at that point, right? At that point, it's not even... I think that I'm going to be comparing James Bond movies to MI movies a lot. It's not even like this thing where he like removes a mask and it's like, holy... Like, you are clearly a white man who's going.
I know
you're going through something. And
you look fucked up, man. Like, what is going on there?
You're dropped on your face a couple too many times. Like, too many fights. Like, maybe retire after this one. Like, the whole thing, him dying, being like dropped into the ocean. I mean, this was a really good bad movie, and that's where I landed with it. So off of that, that 8 is purely entertainment value, because once you don't take it seriously, it's a much more enjoyable watch. And if I try to watch this like the way that I watched Dr. No, looking for a legitimately good movie, I would have come away very pissed off. So I'm gonna give it an 8.
Yeah, Ramon, what about you?
Wow.
It's funny. I was struggling with I was thinking of giving it an 8, like John. I differ in opinion to all y'all. I think this is the perfect skeleton for a Bond movie. You just needed to do it better. Like once again, the Bond girls, like as we were going over it, like I guess the Bond girls didn't fit that well. The villain wasn't that memorable. But as John said, I sat down, I saw what it was at the beginning, strapped in, and it was like, this was actually a pretty enjoyable watch. Like, I enjoyed watching it more than the last movie. Like, there was a question, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. It's like watching Mortal Kombat. Like, it's crap. Just enjoy it. Just have it.
No, it's not taking itself seriously. That's my thing. Like, Bond shouldn't take itself seriously.
Well, that's the problem, Ramon. Bond started off being pretty serious. It was like a legitimate spy movie. But I think at this point, they're in space.
Dr. No?
Dr. No. So that's why I enjoy Dr. No, because I think that's a legitimately good movie. I enjoyed it a lot, and they didn't. There wasn't that much camp. That was the least camp. And the
In
camp
your
that
opinion, but less campy than the last movie.
wait, what?
So it was less campy than the last movie.
Thunderball.
Thunderball. I thought Thunderball took itself way too serious. That's why like none of us could really get through it properly. It was like
So that's the problem with Thunderball is that Thunderball tried to go. Thunderball tried to be so. It went the way around. The same kind of thing with this, but in the opposite direction. Is that this one? At least we knew it was ridiculous. Well, I knew it was ridiculous. Sean Connery knew it was ridiculous. I don't know if Ronald Dahl realized that it was ridiculous.
I don't know. He wrote it, so I think he
I
had to
think he
know.
probably thought it was ridiculous. But like it's a good skeleton to me because it didn't take itself seriously. If you're gonna do that, then put some more quips, put some more puns, like make it whimsical. That is the only thing it missed. So I'm actually giving it a 7 because it had that skeleton. You could fill it out much better. And I think that's probably what the Roger Moore, when we get down, like what the Roger Moore movies were to me, like I could see this being the skeleton for it, and then it was built on more.
Yeah. So what I'll say to that is, I see where you're coming from, but to me, again, this is a different direction. It's like take it so far past the point that you can't. It's not the same type of thing. It's not the same type of thing at all. But that being said, I agree with you. If you give up all those premises and just like enjoy it and just as a movie experience, is it okay? Cool. If I was a huge fan though, and I didn't immediately register that this is what it was going to be, I would have come up so angry. I would have been like, after 5 films, that's Blofeld. I would have been so pissed off.
Yeah, the film was terrible.
Yeah.
So I think the movie's kind of worked its way here. Like I think Goldfinger and Thunderball was when it started to kind of get out there. But Thunderball did take itself a little more seriously. But I really liked the dialogue in Thunderball. I just thought Thunderball had so many fun moments, like with Fiona and Bond with the little quips. Like you said, Ramon, I loved the dialogue in Thunderball. I think Thunderball had the best dialogue of any Bond movie so far. This movie, it was interesting. It had its moments. It was definitely, the pacing was better than Thunderball and Goldfinger, because I think in both of those movies, it kind of dragged at moments. I didn't find that with this movie at all. But this is the first movie so far where things just made absolutely no sense. Like the fact they killed Bond, you know why they killed Bond, but then it makes no sense because his picture is in the paper. She even mentions that he was in the paper and doesn't recognize him, and they don't address it. That's like, how did they not recognize that? And then him turning Japanese, I get why, because the whole thing was that it's in the book, he lives in Japan for a while, so he embraces Japanese culture. He doesn't churn Japanese, he embraces their culture, which is a little different. They don't wax his chest, which they don't do in the movie anyway. They say they do, but they don't, because you still see his hair. So it's like, if you say you're going to do it, just do it. And so the marriage made no sense. It's just, it didn't add anything to the plot. They could have just cut it out, and it would have made no difference at all. So those things I didn't like. But, you know, they had a lot of stuff I did like. I loved the helicopter chase. I thought that was amazing. I loved the underwater fight scene in Thunderball. I think the helicopter chase in this movie was one of the best scenes. The aerial photography of Japan, I thought was fantastic, of the volcanoes. I love the location in Japan, like being in Japan was amazing. I love that volcano lair. I think that is amazing.
Oh yeah,
Volcano lair with the ninjas coming down on the ropes, like that shit was amazing. I loved that.
Great skeleton.
Loved that shit.
Remember that?
And like some of the more campy fight scenes, like remember when he goes in the building and he's fighting the guy, he picks up a whole freaking couch.
What?
So that's fighting with it.
Like that shit is awesome. I love that. So this movie had so much that I liked. I just wish that they had not fucked up the Japanese part and the marriage stuff. Like if they just made that make a little more sense, it would have been a much better movie for me. I don't even think, as much as I said these are the two weakest Bond girls, I don't think they take away from the movie. They just don't add anything to it.
Yep.
Right? So for me, I'm still gonna give it an 8 because, like John said, it's just the entertainment value from the movie, and there is still so much from the movie that I love. So yeah, for me, it's an 8.
Yeah, just to go back again, right? The reason why I'm rating it so high is like all of those things, to me, all those things were ridiculous, stupid things, right? But my ratings come down to entertainment value. That's the reason why I gave Dr. No such a high rating. That was the most entertaining one. And since then, I did not fall asleep in this. No, I did fall asleep at the end, but I also went back and watched this movie because I actually wanted to know what happened in the end, because it was like, it was so, the climax, it just like kept on rising and rising and rising. And it's like, how much more ridiculous is this movie going to get? Like, how much? They're in space. They're ninjas.
The full 9, it would have been amazing. Because like a perfect moment at the very beginning when like Bond kills the assassin and then sees the guy in the car and like pretends to jump in. It's like, oh, I'm the same guy with the mask on. Completely unbelievable. But give me a Bond quip when he pulls off the mask and is like, come on.
Yeah, you know what?
Perfect opportunity.
It is what it is. I know they're going to get worse, but I think that this was the beginning of it. And for me, this was a good amount of ridiculousness. I think that there is going to be a point in these movies where it's too ridiculous. And I'm like, okay, it's not fun anymore. You're actually trying too hard to be that thing. And I feel because it's so organic here, they leaned into it. At a certain point, it's not going to be fun anymore. It's just going to be, all right, y'all are just, this is just stupid now. This was ridiculous. It's going to be stupid at some point.
See, John is saying this now. I don't think Bond has gone too ridiculous until maybe like the Pierce Brosnan section. But
Really?
Yeah, I mean, there's some stuff before, but that is the point where I'm telling you, I'm going to be like, yeah, that was no redemption. I can't even see a B-class movie anymore. Like, y'all spent way too much money making a turd.
All right, so tallying everything up, overall rating for this one is a 7.5 out of 10. Same as Thunderball, actually. So right now, the five movies, Dr. No, From Russia with Love, and Goldfinger are on top with 8.25, and Thunderball and You Only Live Twice are holding up the rear with 7.5. So that is the rating, and it's going to be interesting because this is where Bond started to go kind of campy, but next week it takes a complete left turn and goes back to serious Bond.
Right.
It's one of the most well-regarded movies in the series by fans, but it all depends. Everyone has different perspectives and looking for different kind of Bonds. So it'll be interesting to discuss that. So next week we're going to be talking about On Her Majesty's Secret Service with George Lazenby, the first non-Sean Connery Bond. So until next time, that's signing off.
Cheers.
Prost.